did the years go so quickly, my love? How did we get to be gray? Decades go by in the blink of an eye. It still feels like just yesterday. The first time that I heard you say, love me forever and hold me right now. Gather our memories like this. I know we'll never be old anytime we run.
Is Dr. Yvonne Lozano. Dr. Lozano has over 18 years of experience in the field of gerontology with a focus on geriatric psychiatry. Dr. Lozano is currently an assistant professor of gerontology at Ashford University. In addition, she is a member of the Gerontological Society of America, American Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, National Association of Social Workers, and Sigma Phi Omega. Dr. Lozano is currently the board chair of the Alzheimer's Association, Bear Agency on Aging, Christian Senior Services, Long-Term Care Coalition, Forget Me Not Coalition, and is a member of the Task Force Against Elder Domestic Violence. Let's all please welcome Dr. Lozano.
Bad knees, so I might have to sit and stand. But you're not going to have any trouble hearing me, I'm pretty sure about that. At least I don't think so. You let me know. Do you have trouble hearing me? You prefer that? Okay. Can everybody see the screen? No problems? Can everybody see this screen? That was, what show was that from? The Munsters, remember that? You kind of hear that music in the back of your head somewhere? Where that particularly started? We start thinking about working with older adults, and we start thinking about our own aging. When you work with older adults, you know, that sometimes crosses your mind. When you first look in that mirror, I know for me, the reality of it started with, it didn't so much bother me when I had to get readers at 50, but I'm 107, so I think I look pretty good. That's what I tell people now, I'm 107, 105. Make them think about how good I'm doing for myself. But what really got to me was that first time I looked in the mirror and I saw that gray hair in my eyebrow. That bothered me more than anything else. It was like the only thing I could see for the rest of the day and the rest of the week was that gray hair. I knew that every single person that talked to me that day was staring at that gray hair in my eyebrow. All my students, all the people I work with, everyone was staring at that. It was a realization I had, even as a gerontologist, a master's prepared gerontologist, a PhD prepared gerontologist, thinking I would never have trouble with this whole process of getting older. You know, my knees are getting bad, my knee was getting bad. And it just got progressively worse. But I started to emotionally and mentally what I was feeling. And then I just kind of started to think about what this whole process of aging meant to us as individuals. And then as we're dealing with our own parents or grandparents or family members or spouses or significant others and helping them through issues that are maybe age-related or just disease processes that start to occur for us, as we start to do that, what we think about it is, what do we think about when we think about getting old? So, we have to understand those realities that come along with it, because it helps, sometimes we transform these feelings not within ourselves, but we transform to other people that we're working with, including family members. Now, how many of you are actively caring for a family member or a friend right now? Actively caregiving. Okay. How many of you used to care for someone and no longer are doing so? Okay. How many of you are professional caregivers? I mean, actually get paid for it. Okay. How many of you don't get paid enough for it? That would be probably everybody kind of sitting in this room. I'm not an active caregiver, I'm a secondary caregiver. My mother has a dual diagnosis of vascular and Alzheimer's disease. And I just want y'all to know the same thing I tell my family, is that everything I learned, 1,200 years of college and $250,000 of student loan debt, no one still cares what I have to say in my family. I'm a gerontologist, I tell them, look, I know people, we don't care. I can take you to send you to the right direction, I don't care. My brother about 2 weeks ago sent me this text message, wanted me to know how difficult it was to take care of my mother, and because he wanted me to understand the issues related to Alzheimer's disease and vascular. And he explained it to me on the text. It's everything that you can get through to kind of get through some of those situations. We're going to talk a lot about those situations today and all the things that you particularly manage with. So I'm not only actively dealing with it as a secondary participant. I could never call myself a primary participant because I'm not her primary caregiver. I'm a secondary. I think my brother would probably move me down to tertiary or somewhere below that. But when I think about getting older, I think about this wheel of life. And actually, the reason I have that up there is because I don't know how I created that myself, and I just really like the little graphic that you see up behind me. But it reminds me, we are in this life, and we're connected to one another. We're connected to situations and events in our life as we move along. And how are we connected? Well, we're connected to our work, if you work. And then maybe you're retired now. But you are connected to work, obviously to your family, to your church, to your friends, to your pets, to HEB. All of us are connected to HEB. I mean, you don't think about it, but that is one thing we all have in common, are grocery store activities. That, some of you do it every day, some of you do it once a week, some of you do it more than that, but we're connected to that. Maybe your hobbies, too, you can include on there. Sports activities, taking care of your children, taking care of grandchildren. So we're connected. So we move along in life. We have so much going on. I was just talking to one of my colleagues and friends here earlier about how much we have going on in our lives. But we're just moving along kind of like a little bicycle. And these are kind of the things that we begin to look at. And as we move forward in our life, as we begin to transition and have into our, let's say, retirement, and as we move further and getting older, we start to experience all those connections that we have, and we start to experience them as losses. Right? We begin to lose some of these things. So it's different for everyone. It's a financial loss with our maybe family members moving, children moving out of the house, kind of like an empty nest syndrome, our pets dying, maybe having to kind of move to a smaller home. Although I really have come to believe that one of the ways that we're going to solve a lot of our problems is when we learn to disconnect from our attachment to our homes. Because sometimes the best thing to do is detach yourself from that and be willing to let someone else take care of you. And we're going to talk about that too. We are so attached to our homes. I remember this older woman I used to live next door to in one of the first houses I lived in. She said, it's going to take the sheriffs and all his deputies to drag me out of here. And literally, I think that's what ended up happening, except there was a hearse right behind the sheriff's car. I think that's how long people wait. So there you are in the center. That's you. And you figure out the things that you have connected to. As you get older and we begin to lose some of those things, where they start to kind of disappear from our lives. Look how those losses, look what's happened to your wheel of life. So here's what's significant though. Look at the center self there. Look how much bigger it's gotten. So what's happening to the older person at this particular time? So much of them, they're focused on themselves. Now, they may not pay attention to themselves very much. They may not be used to doing so because they've had so many connections all around them. But here's what they're doing. Not only are they connected to themselves less, but here's what's happening. They're now dependent on the things you see here. Family, maybe neighbors, maybe friends, maybe people from church, and then of course, pets. But even then, we don't know how long that's going to last. I have an uncle now who has dementia, who's in his early 80s, who is not going anywhere as long as that pet is still alive. And he lives on a little 13-acre farm in the middle of nowhere. And he just said, he doesn't even want to go to have dinner because he doesn't want to leave that pet. He and that pet get coffee every morning at Starbucks. That pet just gets in the car and waits for him. So he is so connected to that animal, and here's why. Because his losses, he lives alone, he doesn't have anything else. And his family doesn't live with him. He doesn't want family to live with him. And he tells me, I'll move to that assisted living facility when this is gone. He's just waiting to experience that last loss before he can move on. Although I think that's part of his trick. I think he's just trying to say, I'm not moving. So he'll probably get another dog that looks like that when it's something happens. I think he's going to trick me. So now you have the self, and now it's just family. And that's if there's even a relationship with the family. And that's as if the family even still lives in the same town. And if the family does live in the same town, that connection, that desire to speak to that family on a constant basis, you're now responsible for what's occurring for me in my life. Okay, let's answer some questions here. Have we ever had conversations from the very beginning as to what would happen when I got to this point in my life? How many of you have already had those conversations with your loved ones, spouses or parents? It's not very many. Let's raise your hand and say how many of you have not had those conversations. I think it's important to have the conversation. And you know, I remember the conversation with my mother early on. My father died about 11 years ago. But when she was a caregiver for my dad for about 5 years. But I remember the conversation with my mother was pretty much like this. You three are going to have to take care of me. And preferably the youngest son, Simba, the king. I like to call him King Antonio. The youngest male child of a Hispanic family, I have to say no more. If there was water to walk on, he's walking on it. That's him. I hear amen back there. I know I hear that. And some of you kind of already have that problem in your own families. It doesn't necessarily have to be Hispanic. But even then, when it came time for her to move out of that house, and that wasn't easy, when it finally came time for her to move out of that house, we had a meeting. And it's been recorded. And so no one remembers that it was recorded except me, but I do have the video recording of it. And we asked her, I'm the oldest daughter. Then I have a sister who's the middle child. She's an RN. Of course, she also gets disregarded for the knowledge she has as a nurse, because she's the RN. But remember, before I get into that, one thing I've learned in my recent studies, and that just means two new sources, this is my new joke. My two new sources are they and them. They have said, I shouldn't say that as someone in academia, and then of course they referring to my own family, I think in particular sometime. When your parents, no matter how old you are, look at you, they remember you most of the time by when the last time was you lived at home. That's how they still see you. That 17-year-old kid, that 18-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, or hopefully not a 35-year-old kid who just left home. But there's some of you out there and you know who you are. But unless you're one of those 35-year-olds. So they leave home and that's how they see you. So when you give them information as a professional in the field of gerontology or aging or long-term care, they see you as a 17-year-old going, seriously? You are saying something like that? Where'd you hear that? From those two sources. That's where you tell them. So your siblings, even more so, still relate to you in that way. They don't see you as an adult who has learned all this information, who has educated yourself in whatever form or fashion you've chosen to do so. They still see you as that kid that used to fight horribly and play tricks on each other and do everything you could. Everything you could to make the other one look really, really bad, and they're still trying to do that. They're still trying to make you look really, really bad, and they have nothing, and they'll believe in anything you have to say. And that's what's still happening. So, back to the family. You can tell I appreciate it, because I need therapy. And this is the best way for me to get it. Well, captive audience, you know lunch is coming, you're not leaving. You know it's free, you're not leaving. So this is why I like to talk at this particular time. So now it's just the family and the parent or spouse or whoever we're talking about. So now, why do we we move directly into this right now? Why are we starting to talk about these issues that start to happen when someone has dementia? Because now what I just mentioned, a very small component of what's happened to us emotionally and mentally and our relationships, very small part of our relationships and how they change in our perceptions of aging. And now, on top of all that, now we got this behind us. Just about 2 or 3 months ago, my mother comes to my house. She lives with, I didn't get to that story about the family meeting. We asked her, who do you want to live with? And I mean, it was like, pick a door. But my mother didn't even have to pick a door. She didn't pick my sister's door. She didn't pick my door. She picked King's door. Simba. The light was shining on him. Angels were on both sides of his shoulders. She picked him. More importantly, she picked his wife. I mean, that's not really who she picked, but that's who became her caregiver, right? How many of you, we see her head shaking too. So guess what? Now the wife is saying, hey, what am I doing here? How did I get this? Well, you know, you said yes to the proposal 22 years ago. And along with that proposal comes parents. One of those things that comes with that proposal are his parents and her parents. And we know that statistically, the caregivers are primarily females, although we are seeing more of an increase of males that are becoming caregivers, but when we know now that it's going to be the female. Under no circumstances, people say to me, and I just knew, I could hear all my aunts and all my dead relatives saying, how could you, the oldest Hispanic daughter of this family, not take on this responsibility? How could you possibly let this happen? Well, that's why I videotaped it. I wanted God and everybody that's up there with him to see that I made an effort. And I have to say that I kind of knew who she was going to pick. So she's still there with him. She's been there about 3 years living with them. They have 3 children. And so she stays with me once a month. And in this time, I've been able to see the digression of her disease process. Now, when I share the digression of it with my other family members, it goes in one ear and comes out the other. But I just decided that I would just keep that to myself and all of you and everybody all my board member friends at the Alzheimer's Association, because my family doesn't care. But not that you all care either. But I just thought I'd share it with you. So I've seen some of these things myself, and I can tell you, once again, everything I've learned and all the training I've had does not work with your own family members. I wish there was more that I could tell you. I wish there was a little secret code that I could give you. I wish I could give you slide after slide after slide of something that was going to work, but I don't. And that's why I do this for free. Because I don't think you should have to pay me for stuff you can't use. However, maybe, just maybe, some of these things might work. Maybe you can relate to some of it. So, willingness and ability to bathe, her grooming obviously has declined tremendously from her mother. She was never that kind of woman. Never, always head to toe, perfect. And she's not that any longer. And I know that makes her kind of sad, because my mother liked to be dressed up. She liked to put makeup on. She liked to have her hair fixed. She liked to get her nails done. And she doesn't have that anymore. And so I have to help her. You know, we have to kind of help her do that to look better. It's kind of funny now, because when she comes over, I'm kind of in that stage in my life where I'm starting to purge things. And so I'll say, Mom, would you like this bracelet? And she'll look to say, well, is it gold? Or, like, okay, you only want gold? Now you're going to tell me it's only 24 karat gold? But she'll ask those kind of questions, or where did you get it, or how much did you pay for it? So now she's even picky about that. You know, what I think is interesting about dementia patients is their ability to be able to lie and not know it. And you know it. So she comes out and I told her, I said, Mom, I told her the night before, which I knew that she wouldn't remember in the morning. But I said, don't take a shower in the morning. we'll help you take a shower when and we're gonna go somewhere later, so we'll take a shower then. But she came out and she was fully dressed. She had on her regular clothes. My mother has always she makes her bed better than most hotels make their bed. She knows how to still do that. It's embarrassing because I don't need to make my bed that good. When I lived with her, I had to make my bed that good, but I don't have to anymore. But anyway, so she was fully dressed and she comes out and I said, Mom, did you take a shower yet? I said, well, I said, that shower's not working. Well, I mean, it was, but she goes, well, yeah, it was. It would work for me. I said, really? I said, it hasn't worked in weeks. We have a shower leak back there. No, it works. Oh, where's your towels? Oh, she said, I put them in the washer. Oh, you did? Well, I didn't see them when I put my stuff in this morning. Well, I put them in the dryer after that. They washed. Are they still in the dryer? No, I folded them and put them back in the cabinet. And I'm like, this is a woman who can't remember that she took a shower, but she followed this whole progress of everything that had happened, and you can't say anything to her, because the first thing she's going to say to you, and many of you have heard this, what, do you call me a liar? How many of you have heard that before? You calling me a liar? So, I mean, I could sit there and try to argue with her about it. No, you didn't. I know you didn't take a shower, but I know that later on, I'm going to have to figure out a way to get her in the shower, because now we're dealing with some incontinence with her. And I know that we're going to have to do that. So, that's where it comes in. It's the very gentle approach with her, because I know my mother very well. I know her personality. And the first time I tried to get her in that shower, that we had that experience, it was not very pleasant. It was very hard, very sad for me. I felt very sad that was even occurring with my mother. And she'll say, this is my favorite one. She said, you're not my mother, you're not my husband, so I don't have to put clean underwear on. Okay. TMI, but okay. The gait, mobility, all the things you see up here, the toileting, the communication, the reading skills, the writing, all of that is all diminished to some capacity. Some of the things that are worse than others. The caregiver has to have a complete awareness of where they're at in all of these levels, because you're going to see these levels every day. You're going to see a little bit of it, some more than others, but you're going to see it. Her bathing, she may not want to bathe in the morning, but she might want to bathe later in the evening or in the afternoon. You have to figure out when that's going to be. It's the same thing with eating. The same process. What kind of experience, because it becomes an experience, not just the act of eating. You have to make it a positive experience for them. It's a lot of work, because it's not just preparing food and putting food in a plate in front of them and saying, here's your food. Because she likes for me to sit down with her. She likes for, people to sit around the table with her and talk to her while she's eating. She likes that conversation. That's how we grew up. We grew up in a time before there were cell phones. And my mom would say, you can use the phone to talk to your friends between 7 and 7:10 p.m. That's it. 10 minutes. I had 10 minutes I could talk to my friends. Now, we sat around the table and we talked, and that was what our afternoons looked like when my father got home from work. That's what my mother still enjoys. That's what she likes to have. So you have to think about that for yourself too. What are the things that person likes to have occur? What do they want occurring when they're sitting around the table? The same thing when it's time for medications. All of these things are manageable. They're not easy. It's not fun. It is an experience. And I can only give you certain suggestions, but only you, who are the active caregiver, know that person well enough, at least to be able to try some of those things. And hopefully the professional caregivers have a whole lot of things in their list. But the professional caregiver also has to have an awareness of who this person is as an individual. Some of the behavioral symptoms we see, which I think are important too. I think it's important to have an idea of when something is maybe about to happen. So you kind of have something, you can see that agitation, that irritability, that frustration. And also let me just say something else that we don't think about. People that we're caring for that have dementia or Alzheimer's, they have bad days. They get in a bad mood. How many of you have not been in a bad mood your whole life? How many of you feel sometimes like talking to absolutely no one? that day, on certain days. Well, Alzheimer's and dementia people feel the same way sometimes. They just wake up in a mood. Something happens to them during the middle of the day and they're just in a mood. And you're still trying to get them to do stuff and they're in a mood. So you have to understand what those moods are. It's not so much that there's any magic trick on how to manage the symptoms. It's the magic trick is managing your own reactions to these symptoms. Don't you wish I hadn't said that?
It's the truth.
But it's the truth. You wish I hadn't said that because you wish that there was something that you can do to make your life easier. You know what can make your life easier? You can make your life easier. I have to remind myself about that all the time. I have to remind myself of just the way I get myself so involved in my own job, in my work. You have to remember that in order to be able to do this every day, or just to be every day, you have to take care of yourself. But we don't do it. I've challenged a lot of caregivers in these talks that I do. They'll come to me, they'll say, you don't understand, I do not have 1 minute. And I say to them, because you've not given yourself that 1 minute. Thank you. There are things that you can do to create that time you need for yourself. But as caregivers, we get selfish too, because number one, we think we're the only ones that can do it. Number two, well, they don't like it. Mom doesn't like for someone to come into the house. Dad said he didn't want anybody to come over here. Mom says people come over and they steal stuff. I don't want anybody coming and helping. I don't need anybody to come help me cook. I don't need anybody to tell me what to do around my house. And we listen to them, and then we complain about the fact that they don't have anybody helping them. We just have to make it happen. You can get through that particular stage. I remember my grandmother, we must have gone through 8 providers before she finally was like, okay, I like this one. I don't know what happened with this different one, but my grandmother would hide all her shoes in the closet in a black bag and all of her stuff she could find so that the provider wouldn't steal any of her shoes. I don't know why. But she got a lot of shoes from Sass, and my grandmother thought they were like some fancy boutique in New York City. But she loved her Sass shoes, and she did not want anybody to steal them. After my grandmother died, I still have her red pair of Sass shoes in my closet. I don't know why, but that just always reminded me of her. And it just, they were really important to her. And I think that's kind of the other thing to kind of keep in mind. What is around them that makes them feel good? For my mother, she likes to wear nice jewelry and have earrings on and have a little bit of makeup on maybe. Have her hair done. She likes to feel good like that. What is something that will make them feel good? No, don't give them a chainsaw. Don't do that. Don't send them out to change the oil in the car. No, we're not going to have them do any kind of like that, anything that's going to hurt them. But give them something, some kind of music, something on TV. Read them a book. Give them a newspaper. Give them something that looks like a crossword puzzle. Give them something that they spent a great majority of their time doing, even if they don't even know what to do with the crossword puzzle anymore. Make them feel like they are still part of this world. And they're still they still have some kind of life. So, the increased level of stress, I say patient up here, I shouldn't have patient up there, but for the person you're caring for, is not only going to be happening for them, but it's also going to be happening for you. So both of you are experiencing stress. You know that thing when when you were kids and you walked around your corner and someone came around the corner too and scared you and you both screamed? Well, that's what I feel that caregivers and the people they care for do to each other sometimes. They both are so stressed that they both could scream at the same exact moment, the same exact time, because the stress level is so severe. But what you start to see with this stress is increased anxiety, waking up in the night. All of this anxiety level creates so many of these behavioral symptoms that you see, that you can even see catastrophic behaviors, which are really physical aggression, or trying to get out of the house, or even turning the stove on, dealing with purposeful wandering, sundowning, confusion, agitation, combative behavior. And all of that are things that you can begin to see. All of these behaviors are very significant. But here's what's most important. These behaviors It's a form of communication. They're trying to tell you something. They're trying to tell you that something is going on. Something is occurring. You need to pay attention to that. These behaviors just can't be ignored. Are they symptomatic of the disease of dementia and Alzheimer's disease? Absolutely. They're symptomatic. Can they be managed? Yes. How are they managed well? By how you manage yourself. Back to that thing again. It's kind of like those self-help books. I got so tired of reading them because they all kind of said the same thing, and I really didn't want to do any of it. You know, it does. I mean, you know, I know that sounds funny, but you have to be ready at some particular point to change the way that you react. Our lives would be so much easier if every single person we knew in our life led their life the way we thought they should lead their life. Wouldn't that be great? If you would just do A, B, C, and D, your life would be so much easier, and so would mine, and I would be fulfilled that you are living your life the way that I think you should live it. I would feel good about that. My heart would be warm. My heart would be warm. But here's what the deal is. The reality is what? Is that going to happen? Absolutely not. So we still have to change the way that we react to these situations. We still have to change the way that we react to ourselves. And here's the other thing, we have to be kind to ourselves. Because part of what makes our lives so difficult as caregivers, we make our lives more difficult than anybody else does. The way that we punish ourselves, the things that we say to ourselves in our head, and that old-fashioned big G. Oh, the old big G we've been living with for a long time. The guilt. The guilt that comes through our head in the middle of the night when we wake up and we're thinking about it. All the things that we feel bad about. All the things that we wish we should have done differently. And then that's the other thing. The expectations. The life that we didn't expect, we didn't think that this is the way that it was going to be. I thought by the time I got to this age that I would be retired and I could live my life the way that I wanted to live. And now look what's happened. And now look at the way that it's going to be. Look what's happened to me. I'm not going to be able to live my life that way. I didn't expect this to be the way it was going to be for our marriage at this time in our life. We had other plans. We had other things that we wanted to do. Now I'm somewhat of a hopeless romantic. I think it was just all those episodes of Popeye and Olive Oil that I used to watch. And Popeye always used to say that he was, he was always accused by Olive Oil about being romantical. And I just always used to think that that really was something that happened. It doesn't. No, I'm serious. No, it does. It does, and it can occur. And so I think about that kind of how we romance our lives and what we think is going to happen. And when something doesn't happen, then we think it's over. What is it about being a caregiver, though, that makes us believe that our life can't be fulfilled? Because it didn't go in the direction? That could be one thing, right? Two, it's not easy. It's not, and we feel bad for the person that has the dementia and the Alzheimer's. We would like for it to be different. So how do we change the way in which we think about that and how we approach it? You have to find a different direction to go to for yourself. You yourself have to find a direction to go to. And I don't mean run to Australia and live there. I mean a different direction emotionally and mentally. So let's look at some of these sources of stress. Tired. Sometimes they're just tired. Now my mother, when she comes over, I have to keep her from sleeping all the time during the day because I think she sleeps a lot during the day, my brothers. But I'm not going to say that out loud to anybody. But I think she sleeps a lot. I like to try to keep her awake, and I'm telling you, it is like me saying, "Mom, wake up." And she'll say, "What? I wasn't doing nothing." But I'll just tell her, let's talk, let's play dominoes. She loves to play 42. She likes to play shoot the moon. We try to do that. We try to play cards. But here, one day I found by accident that she likes to look through old pictures, even though she doesn't know who anybody is hardly anymore. But she likes to look through them. And I make her organize them. And we can spend 2 or 3 hours with her just looking at pictures. And then I make her pick a frame. And I'll pick those pictures and put them in a frame. And we do that, and then about 30 minutes later, I make her start all over again. She has no idea that she even looked at them 30 minutes ago, but it works. So for some reason that works for her right now, and she enjoys it. So there might be something like that that you can think about. Because this fatigue, I really believe that it comes from boredom. You know when you have to sit in a doctor's office for a long time, or just sitting where to wait, or when you're sitting in a wedding or a graduation, and by the time it's all over, you're so tired of sitting? But that's what that fatigue is, and that's what starts to happen with older adults. That kind of fatigue is what I think that boredom is what we start to experience, and now they're tired from it. Boredom is something that can be managed. Now, just because they don't know where they're at or what's going on around them doesn't mean they can't be bored. It's bored sitting there all day long. It really is. So you have to find something to entertain them. Do you have to go outside and throw the baseball around? I don't think so. But I think there's things you can do. The other thing is, what kind of stimuli is going on around your house? TV's on, music on, maybe kids are running around. Is that happening too? A lot of noise can create agitation for the person with Alzheimer's and dementia. That's something else. Too many people coming in and out of the house. Is dinner too busy? This is the other thing for holiday seasons. Try to keep those numbers small. Large numbers of people makes my mom very anxious and nervous. I've seen it every single time. She doesn't do well. My sister-in-law comes with a family every Christmas. She's like, we had 55 people. Next, we're having 65 people. My mother will tell me, don't make me stay here. Because she doesn't want to be around all those people. It's not that she doesn't like my sister-in-law's family. It's too much for her. It really is. So you have to think about managing that environment too for them. There's a lot to think about. All of these are things that you can do to help reduce some of these behavioral problems that we see here. Same thing with mealtime entertainment. I mean, that's a part of it too. Physical stress you start to see, usually sometimes they're sick. There's a reason that they're experiencing these symptoms, and a lot of times you're going to see them experiencing these symptoms based on other things that are going on with them at that time. So a change in caregiver, a change in you, like if you're sick for a few days, if you have somebody else come in, all of that can create stress. A change in their routine. Let me tell you, how many of you know how important routine is to someone with Alzheimer's disease? Now, how important is your routine to you? What happens when your routine gets out of whack? You don't like it either, do you? I bet you don't. How many of you brush your teeth with your right hand? How many of you brush your teeth with your left hand? Those of you who brush your teeth with your left hand, I want you for the next 5 days in a row to start brushing your teeth with your right hand, and I want the others to do the opposite. Now, I know you're going to go and you're going to forget about it. You're going to think it's silly. But I'm going to tell you, it's not an easy task. And if someone came in and said, you have to brush your teeth with your opposite hand, this is what you have to do, and change that routine, it would bring some discomfort to you, would it not? What about, how many of you eat around a certain time frame every day, dinner, supper? Between 4 and 4? Okay, whatever. Okay, let's say 5 and 7, 6 and 8. How many of you 5 to 7? Okay, how many of you 6 to 8? Somewhere around there. How many of you 8 to 10? There's probably a couple of you out there 8 to 10. If you change that routine too and say now you're going to eat from 4 to 5, dinner has to be ready at 4:15 for another 2 weeks. Changing that routine is not only difficult for the person with dementia, but it's difficult for you too. So now, what are we doing? We try to fit the person with dementia into our schedules. And when we can't fit them into our schedule, it creates a level of stress for you as well. So the first thing you have to be ready for, I can tell you, for yourself, is to start to say to yourself, I know that my routine is about to change. My routine is about to change. I used to get in bed about 10:30, 11 o'clock, watch the news, read a book, read the newspaper, do a puzzle, and that's not happening anymore, is it? That might be the only time you have now to do laundry, or try to even get that started. So other things now are occurring for you. This change that you're experiencing in your routine is causing you a lot of stress as well. You have to accept the changes that are about to occur in your life so that you can adapt now to the person who doesn't even know what their routine is up here, but their body still has an awareness of what that routine is and what's important to them. It provides them with a very important word: security and comfort. Okay, 2 words. Security and comfort. Hear me say that one more time. Security and comfort. Why is it important for you to hear those words? Because that is what your goal is. Security and comfort for them. Sometimes in providing security and comfort for someone with Alzheimer's means that you have no security and comfort for a while, till you can figure that out. Demands that exceed abilities, not only for this person with Alzheimer's, but also your demands that exceed your abilities. Does that mean that you're not able to do these things? No. But sometimes you don't have an awareness of what's needed because you're so stressed out that you can't see beyond just the very simple thing that you're doing at that particular moment. You turn from just becoming a giver and you lose the care out of the giver. You become just the giver. That it becomes so remote for you that there's no caring behind it. I'm not saying you don't care for that person. But you know and I know how frustrating it can be and how upsetting it can be with you as an individual to deal with that. You find it hard not to be harsh when they're just not cooperating. And so you have to find everything in yourself to try to get through that moment without raising your voice, and sometimes it doesn't happen. Without being a little harsh, and sometimes it doesn't happen. And sometimes I realize when I get to those points myself with Mom, I think to myself, I am trying to get someone who doesn't even know when her birthday is anymore, what day of the week it is, doesn't recognize half the people in her life anymore. I'm trying to get her to understand why it's important that she take a shower and that she hasn't taken one. And I'm trying to have a conversation with her. And I'm trying to rationalize with her. And she's looking at me, and I'm thinking she's listening, but she has no clue what I'm saying. And then I don't understand why she just didn't go straight to the shower and start getting ready. And you have to kind of sit back and think about that. Negative or restrictive feedback, that don't do that, your parents are dead, they're not alive, why do you keep talking about them? I know nobody would be that mean, but it can happen. But this is your house, or this is not anybody else's house. It's your grandson, Mom. You know his name. He just came in here. I mean, all the things that you want to talk about. I already gave, my mother will forget that she'll eat her plate of food and forget that she's eating her plate of food and say, when are you going to feed me? I can't tell you how many embarrassing moments my mom and I and others have had in restaurants. I mean, she stood up and said, take me to the car. She stood up and said, she doesn't understand. Here's what my mom thinks. If I say to my mom, let's go have Chinese food because that's her favorite food. At least she used to remember that. She doesn't remember that anymore. And I said, let's go have Chinese food. We go to the Chinese restaurant. And I'll say, okay, Mom, your part is $7.86. I pay. You invited me to the Chinese restaurant. No, we went together to the Chinese restaurant. No, you invited me to the Chinese restaurant. So now I got to where I'd have to tell her, Mom, let's go have Chinese, you know, you'll pay for yours, I'll pay for mine. Okay, I didn't ask you for any money. You know, and she gets mad at that. And well, now I'm thinking about all the times we've had these fights. So the last time I took her to eat Chinese, I said, Mom, what do you want to eat? I don't know, just order me anything. Which tells me I don't know how to read the menu anymore. I don't know what this place is. So go ahead and do it for me. Here's what she said. I said, Mom, what did you used to like? What would you like to eat? It's your favorite food. No, it's not. I hate Chinese food. No, I said, Mom, you love Chinese food. You have a favorite dish. I want you to remember, I do not like Chinese food. And if you bring me any Chinese food, I'm not going to eat it. So there we are in the Chinese restaurant. So I ordered her what she liked. They brought it. She's like, this is so good. I've never had this before in my whole life. This is the best food I've ever had. I hope you're paying for it. Kind of goes on from there. I like this idea that she has here. She talks about a prosthetic device, that we as caregivers become the prosthetic device for the person with dementia or Alzheimer's. We become that prosthetic device. And that's kind of the way that we want to look at it. We kind of are their memory crutch. In spite of their loss of their abilities, we support them to be more autonomous, to kind of have a little bit more independence. I think the more independence, or the more idea, just the idea of making them believe that they are still a decision maker in some form or capacity. I'll even ask her stuff like, Mom, what do you think I should do about this? And sometimes she'll go, I don't know, or I don't care. And then sometimes she'll have an opinion, but she can't really get all of her words across. What I like best about my mother now is that she can't get mad at me. She can't figure out the rest of the sentence. She stops right before the cuss words. It just works out perfect. She can't really quite get to that like she used to with me, where she would go on and on and on since I was a kid, tell me all these terrible things about me and myself, and now she just kind of quits, and then she's happy. She's forgotten why she was mad at me or what's going on. I just love that. I shouldn't, but I do. There are things that you can like about that now. And she's also getting, and when I used to be the director of geri psych services in San Antonio, one of the things I used to like about Alzheimer's patients was the real sweet ones. The ones who were just like so sweet, but then I also like the ones who cussed all the time too, because they were just entertaining. That's like I used to call them popcorn therapy, where you just eat the popcorn and watch them just go off. But I also like the sweet ones that just really kind of, my mother's kind of got a little bit, she was always with a very stern, very strong woman. She was definitely the disciplinarian in my house, not my father. It was always my mother. People used to say, we're going to send you to the principal's office. I'm like, fine, do whatever he's got to do, but do not call my mother. Send me to jail, send me anywhere, but do not make me go home and tell my mother what just happened. That's how scared, that's how much discipline that woman had. She was just amazing. So now she's, I don't see that anymore, but she still likes kind of being in charge. She is still doing everything she can to hang on to that independence, and everybody sitting in this room would do the same thing. Every single one of you would try to grasp onto that last bit of control that you have. And if you can figure out what that is for him or her, give it to them. Let them have it. Let them do that. I watch her at night when she goes to bed, and I'll go in there with her and I'll sit so I can give her her night meds. But she knows that she takes 5 pills at night. Don't ask me how. And one time I had a duplicate in there. I didn't catch it. She did. She goes, these are 6. My gosh, you didn't even know what today is, but you only take 5 pills. And luckily she did, and I figured out which one it was, and I gave them to her, but because that for her, she goes, I've been taking pills for 20 years, and I know how many pills I take. And she hadn't let that go. So let her have it. I'm not going to argue with her, and she was right. Who knows what that other pill was? I have no idea. What was slipped in there, what somebody was going to try to accuse me of something, and next thing you know, I'm at APS, and it just goes on from there. Remember, dementia is incurable, not untreatable. It's probably one of the things that makes any kind of disease or disorder difficult. We want to preserve, just like I'm talking about independence, they're not only their independence, but any abilities that they still have for as long as you possibly can. Now, I know my mother's hygiene is really bad. She doesn't get to touch food in the house. And if she does touch it, it gets thrown away. But she likes to help out in the kitchen any way that she can. I'm not the best dishwasher either. And I don't have dementia. And if I do get dementia, I'll be the worst dishwasher. But my mother cannot. She used to be a great dishwasher, like the kind that, like, her hands smelled like Clorox for a week. She used to wash dishes really, really well. But she likes to help out. But then this is what she does. Let me help you with those dishes. Okay. Then she goes and tells my brother that all she did in my house was wash dishes. Mom, let me help you with those clothes. Okay, Mom. Here, help me fold these socks. Oh, when I go to Yvonne's, I don't like to go, because all I do is fold clothes, wash dishes. It's just too much. I want to go and relax somewhere. So you have to figure out a way. I get accused of stuff all the time. Beside the fact that I don't know anything. Provide education is important. As much education as you can get, as much support you can get from the Alzheimer's Association, many of the resources that you can use. And I mean all the resources. Find out, more importantly, I tell people, skip to the bottom of the resources where it says the R's and they're in order, and go to respite. Figure out how to use those respite services. So then you can figure out while you're at home and they're in respite care somewhere, how you can do the rest. Now, it is not easy to take your loved one to a respite care facility and leave them there. I realize and understand and know that. But it has to be done. It's the best thing to be done for all parties involved. Now, when you ask caregivers, why don't you do it? Well, they're not going to like it. Well, they don't like being away from me. Well, nobody's going to really know how to take care of them as good as I do. I don't know how many excuses there are, but there's a lot of them. People are always going to give those excuses because I can't deal with the guilt. Because I told them I would never put them in a place like that. Well, what kind of place are you putting them in? What does that mean, a place like that? Hopefully you're not putting them in a place like that. Hopefully you're putting them somewhere where they're going to be cared for. That's what you have to start thinking about. We're going to I think I've talked about some of these. I think I only have a few minutes left, but these are just some warning signs. I think I've talked about making sure that you understand that person well enough where you can pay attention to these warning signs ahead of time so that you don't have to deal with the catastrophic behavior. Humming and muttering, I don't know if y'all have seen them do much of that, but that's usually depends on what they're humming and depends on what they're muttering. So listen to the muttering might be a nice little simple quiet prayer, but then if it's not, pay attention to that muttering. The hyper alert state where they're just watching everything that you're doing, that kind of moving back and forth like this, that kind of anxiety that starts, you start to see that glaring in their eyes, all of those things that you can pay attention to. The concealing the memory loss is very common. It's going to happen. And this is where I think a lot of caregivers tell me, this is where I get the most frustrated. Because I know they can't remember, but they lie and they tell me and I argue with them and I fight with them and I can't get them to understand. I see it all the time in caregivers. I already told you that. Now I want to tell you a secret. I have noticed, and it still works with my mother, and it's been working for a couple of years, not long after she tried to jump out of my truck in the middle of the 1604 in San Antonio, because she got upset because I was taking her somewhere she didn't want to go. So luckily my niece was sitting in the back seat, was able to grab my mother so she wouldn't get out. That was not a pleasant experience. I was really glad that I knew at that particular point that my heart was strong, because I really did. I thought it was over for me too. But, you know, one of the things that you have to keep in mind in those experiences that you are particularly having with them when it does get difficult, is that you are dealing with someone with a disorder and with symptoms that they can do nothing about. They're not reasonable. Why are you trying to be rational with someone who can't be rational? And try to make them believe something they don't understand what it is they're believing. And then they'll say, well, yeah, I do that. But 2 seconds later, they'll just like recite the preamble of the Constitution. How can she do that? And she doesn't understand what I just said. I don't know. I don't know. It just happens that way. I mean, we know, you've heard enough about Alzheimer's already to know that the brain is going through a lot of really crazy things. I don't know why that happens. They have those moments of lucidity, and sometimes they don't. It doesn't mean that they're lying to you all the time. Of course they're lying to you, but they're not doing it on purpose. It's much more fun to have somebody lie to you when they're not doing it on purpose. When they're doing it on purpose, those are the people you need to worry about. Why are you worried about the other people who have no idea that they're telling you this big fat lie? Anyway. Sleep disturbed, losing and hiding things, right? And for some of you having to deal with inappropriate sexual behaviors, that's a whole different talk. We do that talk too also at the Alzheimer's Association. That's something else that we can talk about sometime. This is just because I like this wandering picture. Did you see that? These are reasons people wander, though it's always sometimes related to fear, boredom, hunger. You know, all of this is part of it. Try to make sure that all those needs are met. Repeating questions. Oh, that's where I was at earlier. See, I'm just skipping around. Okay. This worked for my mom. I started repeating the answers back to her. She'd say, what kind of truck does your uncle drive now? A tan one. What kind of truck does your uncle drive now? A tan one. Mom, did I tell you that my uncle drives a tan truck? Oh, yeah. Mom, did I tell you that Uncle drives a tan truck? Yeah. About the 4th time. Yes! God, yes, you told me that he drives a tan truck. Never asked me again. So I tried that from now on. By the time she gets mad at me, she doesn't ask the question again. I don't know what happens in her little brain, but it stopped. And you know what? I had so much fun repeating the answer to her. I was just going, yeah, a little bit of your own medicine, lady. Now see how that feels. I'm a little bit more conniving because I'm lucid and know what's going on, and maybe this is a really sick part of myself. But I'm getting some enjoyment out of this. Giving you back a little bit of your own medicine, which I need to probably start taking too. These are just some important, you probably have some copies of these, but think the situation through instead of being emotional, but let me just tell you, that is so hard. That's why I really do enjoy honking my car at people. Because that's how I feel like doing when I'm caring for my mother. I wish I just had a horn. Stop, stop. You know, you just want to honk the horn at them, like stop and yell and throw your hand out the window or something. I don't know what you want to do, but you just want it to stop and let people know how you feel. But you have to take care of your emotions as well. You have to do that. Doesn't mean you have to be a perfect saint and handle. Those people make me nervous. You ever met those people that nothing bothers them? Oh yes, I'm just loving every moment of being a caregiver. I've just had so many things in my life, and this is just one of the most wonderful things that have been given to me. And you know that person is like drinking their brains out every single night, or taking heroin or crack cocaine or smoking meth. They are doing something to make themselves feel that good. It is not all that good. There's no way. I mean, if they're doing that, then they need to be making millions of dollars teaching us all. Be aware of your own body posture, how you're reacting to them. You know, just the amount of pressure that you're putting on their body when you're trying to force them to do something that they can't do. I mean, sometimes, just, you know, I remember I was trying to get my mom to get her shirt on, and I just couldn't get it to work, and so I just let her walk around in her bra. I was like, you know what, I can't figure it out. And then I'm like, okay, let's try again. I mean, sometimes you just have to stop and be okay with it. Put so much pressure on ourselves. I want to just mention a little bit about that toward this last slide, but that unresolved conflicts that you might have with the person that you're caring for, whether it's a parent, a loved one, spouse. I'm going to tell you, if you didn't take care of those conflicts before they got dementia, don't think that they're gone. Don't they? Oh yeah, I remember that little lady back in 1957. We haven't talked about her in a while, have we? I know it was one time, but I still haven't gotten over it. You didn't really take care of the family, or you were really mean to me. All of these things just go on and on. You were never that great a parent. This is the reality of life. Some of you have a wonderful relationship with your parents, and some of you did not. And now you're the caregiver, and guess what?
Yep.
It ain't gonna be pretty. Sometimes that's why it's important to let someone else take care of them. Someone else be the caregiver for them. Power struggles, responding defensively, sarcasm, all of these things, these are non-helpful responses. Did I say that you're not going to do any of these things? No, because you are, and I do. I do those myself. You have to be aware of them. Do you know sometimes when you go on vacation, remember those vacations you used to have, and you go someplace, or you go to the mall, or whatever you do, and you walk and walk and walk, and you know sometimes, like, I just need to sit down for a few minutes, I'm tired. How many of y'all experience that? How come we don't do that as caregivers? How come you don't stop and take those breaks you need when you are completely and totally emotionally and mentally and physically exhausted? Okay, they're telling me I have 2 minutes. Let me try to get to my funny little slides. Oh, look, these are my suggested techniques. I do have to say that I like using silence. I've actually always liked that. I'm not saying it's always important. Encouragement, make your observations, exploring. Where are we on that? I thought I really was farther along. Sorry about that. Okay, here we are. That's what I want to get to. When you feel like you have no way out. How many of y'all feel like that sometimes? So the Alzheimer's Association is here for you to help you find that way out. No one knows if you need anything. No one knows what you need unless you tell them. And lastly, find 3 friends, and you may already have them in your life, and I call them 2 o'clock in the morning friends. Those friends that you can pick up the phone at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and say, I'm about to lose it. I need somebody to talk to. The Alzheimer's Association, a 24-hour hotline of someone you can actually talk to that's not a robot. You can actually talk to them. Keep that in mind as well. Find those 3 o'clock in the morning friends, and make sure that you would also do that for them as well. Laughter is really truly the best medicine. Find ways to laugh about what you're doing. Start to journal your experiences. I do that with my mother. Just write down stuff that she does and says. You have to laugh about it, or you're gonna go crazy. You really do. Rely on the resources you have with the Alzheimer's Association. Rely on your 2 o'clock in the morning friends. Rely on your own instinct, and most importantly, learn to be okay with taking care of yourself. Y'all have been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lozano. Appreciate that. We really do, and we give you a small token of our appreciation here as a gift from us to you. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you. Okay, who's hungry?
I know where y'all are still here.
Our next speaker is... Okay, so this is what's going to happen. We are going to have lunch. It is now...
Good luck to y'all.
Yeah, we are.
Thank
Explain to you
you.
what's going to happen. We're actually going to happen right now.
Yes,
We're going to
ma'am.
have lunch. It's going to end at 1:35, and we're going to have a raffle right now. And then during lunch, we're going to have a small talk with the Alzheimer's Association. About 20 minutes, and then we'll resume our next speaker at 1:35 sharp. So here's Maxine with the raffle.
If you send me an email, I'll
Everyone
send
submit
you a
their
copy.
cards already? Did we collect all of your cards?
Thank you very much.
Yes?
That's great.
So we're going to do, if you heard the news lately, you heard that Julianne Julianne Moore won the Best Actress Award for the movie Still Alice, which brought great awareness to Alzheimer's disease and of course our organization because they were part of that as well. So we're going to give away the actual novel Still Alice. So let's see who's the lucky person today. Yeah. Patrick? If you read it, have your Kleenex close by so you can enjoy. We're going to do one more raffle before we start lunch because we're still prepping a little bit. So thanks to one of our supporters, we have a gift card. Not sure what it is, but it is a gift card from the Peterson Medical Group. So here it is, our next gift. Paola. Paola. Here you go. Thank you. Thanks for attending. Yes. Sure. We'll do this one. Okay, we'll do one more and then we'll go to lunch. So in this cold weather, we have a beautiful cup from the Alzheimer's Association. This is pretty, so let's see where our next one is going to get it. Kristen Jolie. Woohoo! So if you'd like to just break for lunch, we're open and ready. Thank you.
So she doesn't wear my ears for you.
Where did the years go so quickly, my love? How did we get to be gray? Decades go by in the blink of an eye. It still feels like just yesterday. The first time that I heard you say, love me forever and hold me right now. Gather our memories like this. I know we'll never be old anyhow. Anytime we reminisce, I'll be as young as you are.